A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase.
Welcome to Cornwall, everybody, and I'm hoping you can hear me because it's quite windy, which is perfect in Cornwall. But yeah, you might just not be able to hear me. I'm here with Nigel and Mass, who are somewhere around here, and we're waiting for sunrise, which it looks like has already happened, but it's behind the clouds. Anyway, before we get started on the photography in this video, you might remember a couple of weeks back I made a video moaning about the new Sony A7R Mark V, which Mass has brought here actually, so I might end up having to play with it. The screen's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's annoying. Anyway, my problem with that camera was that there's just too much technology, and I think it gives too much help in some instances, potentially, to the photographer, and that potentially removes some of the fun from photography if you do photography for fun. Anyway, long story short, I ended up borrowing a Leica M11, which I will make a video about on this channel, and I really enjoyed the process. I did think at one point I may end up buying one. I'm not going to do that, and I'll explain all the reasons for that in the video that I make about that camera. But I enjoyed the experience of shooting on a Leica so much that I've since converted all my other cameras to Leicas. Honestly, look, I don't know if you can see that. To be honest, Emily was a little bit concerned I was going to be sued by Leica for writing Leica on all my cameras, but then she saw what I'd done, and all of a sudden she seemed less concerned. I don't know why. I can't imagine it's got anything to do with my handiwork. Anyway, yes, this is my Leica A7R Mark IV. Remarkably like the Sony, but just feels a little bit nicer to shoot with for some reason.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm getting lots of messages this week about a Black Friday sale and whether I'm doing one. I've not really thought about it, to be honest, so I'll just do 50% off my presets for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, I'll put a bit more thought into it next year, I think, but I didn't this year, so sorry about that. But yeah, if you want my presets, they're half off in the description below for the first 2 or 3 days of this video. Back to the video.
I do like having this warning sign in the foreground, and if I just take it out of focus by shooting at f2.8, it doesn't really detract from the message because you can still read it, but it's not distracting, hopefully. Right, bit of an update. I've found Nigel. There he is. And I think my favourite shot of the morning so far was from that cafe in there. I was sat under the coffee, and it was like a dog walker taking a photo of a wave sort of on the pier, and I think it looked quite nice. I was just sat with my mocha, so says a lot for being out for 3 hours in the wind, doesn't it? Anyway, I'm now stood trying to get broadly a similar shot, but not in a cafe, waiting for the right person to stand in the right place, basically. Whether it'll happen, I don't know. Well, hi again, everyone. There's no getting around the fact that it's a different day. It's the next day. Basically, it rained all afternoon yesterday, so we didn't do too much more photography, other than some shots of surfers in St Ives, where we're staying, but then it did bucket it down. So we edited all afternoon. Today, as you might be able to tell if you know the area, we are at Sennen, and it's a lovely spot. The water here is ridiculously blue, and I'm trying to find some photos. I could be wrong, but I think I'm about to get very, 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 very wet. Get a shot of Nigel. Well, this is grim. Need a coffee. Well, we're at Land's End now, and you might remember this stack from last year when I was carrying Noah as an 8-week-old, and it's even more breezy today, I think, but an amazing place. I remember being here last year thinking this is one of the best places I've ever been to take a photo. It's so dramatic, and the lighthouse in the background means I've got my man-made element, which I love in landscapes, as many of you will know. And on a day like this, the drama, it's unbelievable. The light in the background and the streaks of showers just makes it look absolutely epic. I may end up having to composite a photo because the waves and the birds in the sky aren't quite marrying up. I've not captured them in one single photo yet, so think of that what you will, but what a joy it is to be here with a Leica, no less. Look at the wave! I'll tell you what, it's funny. One of the best pieces of photography advice, street photography advice really, that I ever heard, was that you should find a spot and stay there for 1 hour, regardless of whether or not you think it's going to be a fruitful place, because you never know what might happen over the course of time. And having spent about, I don't know, 2-3 hours here this afternoon, I couldn't agree with that more. I know this isn't street photography, but that scene has changed, I don't know, half a dozen times completely, and given me completely different results. Right now might be the best though, because as you might be able to see, the spray that comes off the rock when it hits the rock then gets illuminated by the setting sun to create this orange haze, which just looks amazing, especially when the lighthouse in the background is doing much the same. It is fantastic. And we've still got an hour or so of light left. Mwah! It's funny, I remember some scenes in Antarctica earlier this year that made me feel a little bit emotional, which I've never really felt about scenes and photographs and places in general, but Antarctica and Cornwall, or Land's End, or this scene in particular, I don't know, feel a bit teary, which, as I said, doesn't usually happen. Could also just be the wind.
It was the wind. It was definitely the wind. I mean, I've got no problem crying about the beauty of a breaching orca, for instance, but I don't want to be known as a person who weeps about rocks, regardless of how nice they look. Anyway, yes, thank you for watching. I made a few videos on that trip to Cornwall, and I look forward to publishing them. Nigel and Mass did the same, I believe, so definitely check out their channels over the coming weeks. And yeah, fun trip. Although I can't really feel my lips. We've got sandblasted for a week. Now, a big thank you also to the sponsor of this week's video, Squarespace. Now, as many of you will know, I love my Squarespace website, and the second image on my Squarespace website is that shot from Land's End that I took last year, and I think I'm going to replace it with the one that I took at sunset a few days back. I mean, there's no perfectly positioned bird, and I didn't do any compositing, but the light and how it glows on the rocks is, I mean, it didn't make me cry, but it's lovely, I think. Now, if you are looking for somewhere online to showcase your best work, I Are my lips shiny? Then I wouldn't look any further than Squarespace. They feel sticky. So Squarespace has lots of templates that are perfect for photography websites. Mine is called Wells. I've used it for the past 5 or 6 years. I absolutely love it. And it works great for my portfolio, works just as well for my online store and all the other pages that I have across my website. I will be building a page just for these Cornwall images, but rather than do one for each video, I think I'll compile them all together. So in a couple of videos time, when I've released all the Cornwall videos, I'll link to that. Anyway, if you would like to try out Squarespace, and I highly recommend you do if you haven't already, then you can start a free trial by going to squarespace.com. And after that, if you'd like to make a purchase, just go to squarespace.com/James and you'll get 10% off of that first purchase. And yeah, big thank you to them for their continued support of this channel. Next week, I'll have another video from Cornwall, and it'll be windy again, and I'll probably be crying again. I'll see you then.